asked to determine the probability that a man randomly selected from this group died of causes related to heart disease, provided that neither of his parents suffered from heart disease. So there are really two things going on here. We have people with heart disease, and we have people some of whose parents died of heart disease, or sorry, suffered from heart disease. And so we'll put those together in a 2x2 table. So we'll describe people who currently have heart disease, and then we'll also compare to people whose parents had heart disease. Okay, so we'll say the person, him or herself, will be over here. So the person died of heart disease, and then we'll say not died of heart disease. Okay, so that's one of two possibilities. You either die because of heart disease or you don't die because of heart disease. And then similarly, we'll talk about the person's parents. So we're talking about men who had at least one parent who suffered from heart disease. Okay, so we'll say parent and not parent to describe people whose parents suffered from heart disease, and then people whose parents did not suffer from heart disease. Okay, so we are told that the medical records of 937 men are examined. Okay, so that's the total. Those aren't necessarily falling into any one of these categories. That's just how many people were sampled. It discovers that 210 of the men died from causes related to heart disease. Okay, so here's heart disease, died of heart disease, and 210 of those total people, of those men, died of that condition. So we don't necessarily know whether or not their parents did or did not suffer from heart disease. We just know that there are 210 men who did die of heart disease. Moreover, 312 of the 937 men had at least one parent who suffered from heart disease. Okay, so this is the parent column. We're representing the case where at least one parent had heart disease, and there are 312 of those instances. Now, we don't care how many parents had heart disease. We just want to say at least one or no parent. Well, this gives us plenty of information, but we have a little bit more. Moreover, 312 of the 937 men had at least one parent who suffered from heart disease, and of these 312 men, so we're still talking about these, 102 died from causes related to heart disease. So of the people whose parents suffered from heart disease, 102 of them themselves died from that. So we have plenty of information here in order to be able to calculate all of the cells now and fill in all of the blanks. A couple different ways we could go. We know that 312 plus this number has to be 937. So I'm going to do this in a different color just so we keep what we found and what we've been given distinct. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now type in 937 minus 312 to get the people who didn't have parents suffering from heart disease, and that number comes out to 625. Similarly, I could do the same thing here. 937 minus the 210 will tell me how many people did not die of heart disease. And I accidentally have an extra number in there. So 937 minus 210 gives me 727 people who fall into this category. So I'll do the same thing here. This one I'll just do by eyeballing it. This is a difference of 108. So 102 plus 108 gives me 210. And I can do the same thing here. 312 minus 102 is going to be 210. And this one I think I'll just go ahead and do. I'll probably be faster at it. 625 minus 108, that's 517. So just as a quick check to make sure we did things correctly, we can check that 210 plus 517 equals 727. So 210 plus 517, because of course we want to make sure that everything adds up. These shouldn't be numbers should not be off here. It doesn't matter where we start or where we end. We just want to make sure that all the totals match up and that everything works out fine. Okay, so the question was to determine the probability that a man randomly selected from this group dies of causes related to heart disease. So the probability that someone dies of heart disease provided that neither of his parents suffered from heart disease. So no parents suffered of heart disease. Okay. Well, this tells us who we're comparing to. So the people who did die of heart disease, so we're looking at the group of where their parents did not have heart disease. So there are 625 of those individuals. So really we're isolated to just this column right here. And how many actually of those died of heart disease? Well, there were 108. So 108 divided by 625 tells us that there's roughly a probability of about 17.3% chance. So that means that we would like to generalize and be able to say of all people whose parents did not suffer of heart disease, we would expect about 17.3% of them to die of heart disease themselves.